please join us in welcoming our three panelists for today. Up first, we have Cynthia Moreno.
Hi, hello.
Mina Park. And lastly, Megan Reyes. So thank you so much for joining us here today. To start off, we'd love to hear a little bit more about yourselves. If you want to give a little bit of a self-introduction and some of your background.
Sure. Hi, so I'm Cyn from Hot Pink Pineapples. And I actually started as a set decorator for NBC for 11 years. And then about 5 years, basically transferred into more of a digital space and being creative on social media. And I basically do now apartment DIYs for apartment dwellers, which is very similar to kind of my on-set experience because I basically designed and built sets that were non-permanent, which is what every apartment dweller now needs. So that's basically what I do now.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mina Park, and I am the co-founder and chief creative officer at Crispy Chicken Social Media Agency. I launched the agency about 4 years ago in LA and mainly work in entertainment spaces. But before that, I did a lot of sports, worked for Fox Sports, the Rams, MLB. And then, yeah, I just fell in love with content. And so here I am.
Cynthia, I'm probably moving soon, so I'm going to need you to help me with my apartment.
I got you.
Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. My name is Megan, and I have a very I'm going to try and condense a long-winded background in sports. So I started off on the team side, working for college and professional teams, worked in sports media, spent a very short stint in video games, and then pretty recently I went fully freelance, and so now I do some social media consulting with brands and teams. I work with some professional athletes on their personal branding and marketing, and then also myself, I'm a creator, host a couple soccer shows, and do some influencing and social media creating. So a little bit of everything.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction. We're going to get into some questions now, and Megan's going to start it off.
Yeah, so as individuals who are pursuing a career on social media and may be on social media for most of the day working, do you have any advice for students or young girls who may get lost in the perceptions or ideas that social media holds?
Boundaries. Really creating boundaries, especially because not only is your work now literally attached to you everywhere you go. I think for me, and I'm still learning this, is creating boundaries for myself and setting my own time of when I'm going to be on, you know? It's so easy to kind of make work and life just become one, and I'm sure a lot of people have felt this way in the last 2 years, right, where you're not even leaving your spaces. And so for me, it was just creating boundaries there, not only with my time. Also, I think, you know, there is wonderful to be on social media. It's wonderful to be able to create a brand and have a business and to be a creative person that can make money to take care of yourself. But also, social media also can be it can be a little bit of a toxic place sometimes. So knowing how to take constructive criticism and then also knowing how to completely discard just criticism because there are trolls, we all know about them. So I think for me, it's just really creating those boundaries of what I consume, how I consume it, and when I consume it.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. Yeah, I think for me, it's not take things so personally in the sense of performance. If like, oh, I thought this reel was gonna crush it, and it like flops. To not take it so personally. Sometimes I'll take it home with me and be like, man, am I worth anything now? Like, I thought I was creative, and but yeah, I think ultimately, you know, it's human nature. We're trying to predict people on an app if they're happy that day, are they gonna like it, right? Like, there's a lot of things outside your control. So at the end of the day, just being happy with this, I did my best. I'm happy with this piece of content. If people are receptive, not so receptive, sometimes that's outside of what you can control. So try to not keep it so personal.
Yeah, I love those boundaries and taking things personally. I think even just in life are so important. But I think another piece I've learned, especially as I've started to do both like influencer work personally and then helping some of the athletes that I work with, is really, I mean, we say this all the time, but like really, really try not to compare yourself to what other people are doing. It's, again, it's so easily you could value or sort of question your value when it comes to, I have a great following, I'm very creative, I know how to make good content, why aren't brands approaching me, or why am I not getting these sort of deals? And then I've learned that most influencers, unless you're probably, you know, like the Kylie Jenners of the world, a lot of influencers are actually pitching brands and like going out on behalf of themselves to get these sort of deals. So it's not that you aren't worthy or that brands don't want to work with you. It's just a lot of people are actually, you know, being proactive and pitching on their own behalf. And I would also say that like you can't equate your worth to your following. I think it's one thing I could go on a whole TED talk about is just following doesn't equal anything, in my opinion. You could have 500 followers and you can have the most engaged and niche community, and that's what matters more than following. So it's hard, even I sometimes have to remember that, but that's something I would really encourage everyone to remember.
Thank you for sharing that insight. I think it's really important for young girls and any woman or anybody, to be honest, to not attribute their worth to their following or the amount of likes they get. So thanks for sharing that.
So our next question is, with many people such as myself wanting to make social media a career for themselves, we wanted to ask, what was the original career and life goal you had when you were in college? And what have you learned from following or not following that specific path?
They didn't teach social media when I was in college.
We didn't have social media.
Yeah,
when we were in
well,
college.
I had Facebook back in the day when it was college only. But yeah, I was a marketing major, so yeah, I had 0 social media classes. So
Same.
yeah, personally, I wanted to do music, go into music marketing. Couldn't get any internship, couldn't get any job in music. Ended up, for some reason, I guess film and TV started getting some openings there. I was like, okay, that's fun too. Like, I love like shooting videos, so maybe instead of music, I'll go that route. And then from there, it just kind of, the rise of social media is like, oh, I can like actually create things and on my own that don't take years to produce and develop and get financed and distributed, etc. So yeah, it just happened to be taking advantage or taking opportunities that were opening up with the rise of digital, and yeah, I just kept going and fell in love with it. So
I studied art direction and set design, and so I actually did that for a little while. And then, like most people in the industry, I burned out really hard. I was working like 14, 16-hour days, just like a very art department standard time. And after doing that for 11 years, I had like no more to give. And so social media happened totally by accident for me. I didn't know what an influencer was, a content creator. I don't even know if that even existed when I started my Instagram account. I literally was working and I just was so burnt out, and the style that I was designing was very just repetitive, and I just felt like creatively I needed another outlet. So I actually just started my account just for fun. I didn't even know you get followers. That's how like naive I was. I just was like, oh, I need a place to just like organize my pictures I want to take. And I started taking these colorful pictures, and then like a year, maybe 2 years later, I was getting a following, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I ended up quitting my job thinking that I would just do freelance set design. And then someone approached me and was like, hey, if you post this, I'll pay you. And I was like, I would take that for free. What? And that's when I started to kind of realize like, oh, there's might be like a business opportunity where I could still be creative and make some money. And so it kind of just happened by accident. And so I still started in a creative outlet, but it definitely wasn't like social media or marketing. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, I mean, likewise, we didn't have social media. I think when I graduated, like we maybe had Instagram and Snapchat. So it's relatively new-ish also. And mine, like them, was sort of by accident. I always knew I wanted to be in sports. That's what I found my lane when I was 18, when I was a freshman. So I always knew I wanted to be in sports, but I never knew what that actually looked like. Probably back then, I envisioned myself being, I don't know, vice president or GM of a team. Now that I've been in this field long enough, I would absolutely never do that. But I kind of fell into this as I was starting to honestly just like use social for fun. I feel like that's how a lot of this happens. And I think for me, I spent 4 years working for the Golden State Warriors, and so I think there was a little bit of a this pocket there where people really gravitated towards seeing the behind the scenes of what it was like working for the Warriors at the time, because I was there actually through the whole championship run. So I was posting things from games and us going to finals trips to Cleveland, and I kind of started to get some followers from that. And as I continued to just be myself and grow this presence, that's when I started to realize, similar to what Cynthia shared, like, oh, there's kind of an opportunity here. And honestly, I didn't start doing professional social media work until about 2 years ago. So it kind of started for fun. And then as I realized I'm kind of good at this, that's when it became a job.
Sure. The growth of social media is super exciting, and all the opportunities that are rising within it, again, very exciting. So we're super excited to be asking you these questions and to pick your brain more about your careers.
So our next question is, what is one of the biggest lessons you've learned in your career that you wish you learned sooner?
Mine is actually something we touched on earlier, and it's something I'm still continuing to learn. My worth is not determined by what I create. I think being a creative person and an artist, like, it's those sort of mesh sometimes, and I have to constantly like separate sin from hopping pineapples, because I will take it so personally and I start to feel like I don't matter and I'm creating such terrible things. And the reality is, like, that isn't my worth, that's my business. It doesn't mean I can't, like, you know, and so much is out of our control. So for me, it's this constant remembering, like, separating the two, because that can take a toll on you mentally, you know, if you always feel like you suck, you know? And so for me, that's my biggest lesson, is continuously like separating my business from who I am and my worth.
Yeah, this is something I'm still learning and still trying to practice, is to not be afraid to ask for help. I think a lot of times I'm just like, this is my problem, or this is my like journey, I have to figure it out on my own. But there's so many people that are willing to help you and to open doors and put you in areas so you can learn and grow. So yeah, I think for me, if I was, you know, speaking to myself younger, I would have been like, you should talk to more people. Like, you know, especially like your first job out of college is probably not going to be where you end up. Sorry if you guys have jobs lined up. But you know, even if you get it, if you're in a job and you're kind of discouraged, you're like, this isn't for me, maybe talk to people, you know, in different departments. Try to let it be known, like, hey, I'm interested in sales, I'm interested in development, and see, can I pick your brain for 30 minutes and just try to, you know, learn as much as you can. And then they'll remember as well of like, oh yeah, there's a position that's opening up. I remember that she was really interested in this. That's how it all works, you know? So, yeah.
I agree with that 100%. I think also kind of what we were talking about earlier, taking things personally. I used to bring my work home, like the things that made me so upset, and it would just fester into my personal life and bleed into my weekend and just ruin my whole mood. And it was I was just too immature at the time to understand, but I just took everything personally. But I think a piece of advice I would give is not to settle and to really know your worth. I think regardless of what sector you want to be in, again, what I know is sports, I know entertainment, it's highly competitive. Anybody wants to be in the field. And so if you're given an opportunity, most people are going to take it, regardless of what it pays. I understand that, and I've been there, I've done that before. But I think it's now, the world is more of your oyster than maybe it was when I was coming out of college. Just, again, really the power of social media. There's a lot of opportunities available. You don't have to say yes to everything if it doesn't serve you. You don't have to settle for a job just because it's a job. And then I would also say that do not be afraid to ask for what you want or for what you feel like you should be compensated for. I think it's an issue that, well, not really an issue, but it's just something that women struggle with, is we're given a job offer, total compensation package, and we say, okay, great, that's probably what I'm worth. And you usually come to find out that your male counterparts are getting paid more because we just didn't ask. So I work on it myself. It can be an uncomfortable conversation, but I would really encourage you to not only just not settle, but if it's the right opportunity, do not be afraid to ask. Worst thing they'll say no. Best thing, you'll get paid more. Great. So I think that's something that I really encourage a lot of the young women I mentor is like, you don't have to say yes to everything, and don't be afraid to ask for what you want.
Thank you for making that point. I agree. It's very important to have the courage to ask for more money if we feel like we deserve it, because often not men are making more in the same roles. So
Exactly.
And Mina, kind of touching back on what you said earlier about advice that you would give to younger self, what's something that you would tell your freshman year self? And then what's a piece of advice that you would tell yourself who was about to be graduating?
I would have told my freshman self, kind of piggybacking on the last one of like, don't be so hyper focused on your major. I wish I explored a little bit more in terms of trying out different clubs, even if it's not in marketing or business, just because you don't really know. I guess sometimes you don't know your interests until you try something new. So I wish I took advantage of, I guess, more, workshops or different clubs and events in college. And then I guess I would tell it's graduating senior, right? Probably not to panic. That's always like, it's pretty scary, I think, going into the real world of just trying to, again, find the perfect job. There is no perfect job, and putting that pressure on you of like, I have to be successful or I have to make this, etc. It feels like a lot, I think, right when you're graduating college, but I think just take a deep breath. Everything's going to work out the way it should.
Definitely. I will definitely be keeping that in mind.
Don't panic.
I appreciate that.
Megan, Cynthia, did you have anything to add to that as well?
I'd agree. I think, the biggest thing I would say is you have so much time to figure out what you want to do. I mean, it doesn't matter at what point in life. I just pivoted career paths, and my birthday's next week. I'm gonna be 31. Like, you have so much time. Like, when you're 21, trying to figure out what you want to do when you graduate, you have your entire life ahead of you. And it's easy to get caught up in that. And again, social media doesn't necessarily always help. And I've talked to some girls that are like, I'm a freshman in college and I feel like I'm behind. I'm like, okay, hold on. Well, when I was a freshman in college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So you have plenty of time, but I really think that is the biggest thing, is not to panic. Like, everything will work out.
Also, if you can live with your parents, live with your parents.
Absolutely, yes.
I lived with my parents for a while after I graduated, and it was one of the greatest gifts they could have ever given me. And the whole time I kept thinking, no, I have to be an adult, I gotta get out. And realizing now, I'm like, wow, that was so great that I had that privilege to do that, because it gave me a little bit of an extra pad before I was in the shock of, this adult and career and everything. So it's cool to live with your parents.
I never did that, but if I could, I would. Yeah, do not be ashamed. I'm jealous of all my friends that did.
Even today, it would be nice.
It's too expensive.
For sure. Great way to save money.
Definitely. And with things like comparison and imposter syndrome being so prevalent within our generation, I think, we really appreciate the advice that you provided. I definitely am taking mental notes right now, and we'll be applying it moving forward.
All right, next question is for Cynthia. And well, first of all, I want to know what the inspiration behind the username Hot Pink Pineapples is.
Oh, I'm gonna be so disappointing in this answer. I get asked this all the time. And like I stated before, like, it happened on accident. It truly, I just was in the car one day and I happened to have pink hair at the time. And pineapples were really trendy in design.
Yes, they were.
and I wanted to be pink pineapple, but it was taken. And so I was like, I want to be hot pink pineapple. And then I was like, oh, that one's taken too, just add an S. And now I had no clue. Like, if someone had told me that day in the car, hey, you're going to build an entire brand with that name, I would have not picked that. I will say, I think back of that girl who so naively picked that name, was just looking for a creative outlet, and it does make me smile, and I'm kind of glad that's my name. But also, every time I go to events and stuff, for some reason, people are like, yours is the only name I can remember, Hot Pink Pineapple. So I guess it's memorable, and I know, not a great story. I wish I had I should make something up. But it was totally just a fluke.
It's authentic. That's
I mean, it is memorable. We got hot pink pineapples and crispy chicken. Like, you cannot forget that.
Amazing names. Yeah, you have built such a great following on your social media, and I checked it out. So aesthetic. She has like 100K followers of hot pink pineapples, everyone. Remember.
Hit that follow. Right.
So Mina, we have a question for you as well. So before founding Crispy Chicken, you have worked at multiple workplaces. What were your experiences like working with MLB, Fox Sports, and the LA Rams? And how have those experiences helped you working for companies within the entertainment industry?
Yeah. So yeah, like I mentioned, a lot of sports, and Megan, you probably can relate a bit, or you can tell me no. But it was working in sports might be one of the hardest fields in like the entertainment spectrum, mainly because it's mostly nights, it's mostly weekends, it's all holidays. The grind really never stops in sports. Uh, but I am fortunate that I had my experience in sports because it did, I think, develop a lot of my skills in social media because it's kind of a 24/7 job. So just being aware of, okay, what's happening on a random Tuesday night while I'm watching this baseball game that I have to cover, right? So I think sports really, yeah, gave me that kind of work ethic of like what to expect in social media. And now working in entertainment, it's actually scaled back in terms of hours, which I guess is also, there's like a stigma against agencies as well, of people who work at agencies work really long hours. Luckily, and maybe to the credit because I'm running the company, we don't work long hours. And so, yeah, I think I really look back fondly at my sports years, but also it was very hard, and which is why I did want to transition out of it a bit. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I made some of the best friends working in sports. And I also think like sports content creators, they are super innovative. So even today, like I'll follow a lot of sports accounts and teams and kind of see what they're doing, how they're pushing the buttons, because they have games every day, every weekend. They have to. They're like forced to innovate. So a lot of times I look at what they're doing and kind of see, oh, that's really interesting. Like, is there a way to translate that into entertainment? So yeah, kudos to everyone who works in sports.
You're not wrong.
Thank you for that answer. It was very interesting to hear. Our next question is for Megan, and it is, being a freelance social media content creator, I know you work with a lot of brands, and we were just wondering if you are more of an advisor role for them, or do you actually physically create content for them?
It's a great question. It's a little bit of both. So I've been freelance since October. So again, like November? I don't know what month it is. So I'm relatively new to this. I'm very fortunate. I've had some really exciting clients in the short time. So one of them being actually, I did like some contract work with San Diego Wave FC when they announced Alex Morgan and did the Crest announce and the expansion draft, the college draft, all of that. And that was more strategy and really saying like, this is what I feel like we should create. This is what it'll look like. And then with the team, their designers created it. And in that specific instance, they were the ones actually hitting send. Although I did have access to the account, it was more of a team effort. I'm just now wrapping up, which again, very fortunate, a short contract with the International Olympic Committee. So I was doing community management and social media throughout the Winter Olympics. That was like content creation, posting on their behalf, commenting, really that true community management. And then there are, the work I do with some of the athletes, that's more of an advising, consulting. I don't want their logins. They probably don't want me to have theirs either. So it's a mix of me really being the brand and really speaking on behalf and being the one to write the copy and make sure it's true to the tone. And then a lot of it is also just consulting and advising.
Gotcha. And then do you reach out to these brands, or do they reach out to you, or does it just kind of depend?
It kind of depends. So with Wave, that was more of a friend in the space. I actually applied to the Olympics job, and I'm going to say, shoot your shot, because I just applied for it and just kind of said, oh, whatever, we'll see what happens. And I did not think I was going to hear back. And then I heard about a month later, and I thought it was a rejection email until I read it closely. So they're based in Spain, and the time difference, it came in at like 3 a.m. And so I read it when I first woke up. thought it was going to be a rejection letter, and they were asking for an interview time. I was like, oh, okay, this is great. And then some of the athletes, like they've come to me, or one of them's like a friend that I work with. So it's a little bit of a mix. I will say that I'm, again, just very blessed that a lot of mine are just have been inbound people that I know through my network or in the space that are looking for help.
Awesome. That's so interesting. I'm really proud of you for being able to build
Oh, thank you.
your business through that.
Thank you.
And Megan, kind of touching back on something that you talked about earlier, and if you all would like to answer as well, but do you have any advice or tips for all of us, in the early stages of our career about negotiating for ourselves? And do you hype yourselves up for that conversation? Do you, write things down? How do you really prepare for those kinds of, difficult conversations, especially as women in these spaces?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I go to therapy, first of all, and I wish it was more affordable, but a lot of times my therapist has me practice things in the mirror, like talk to yourself in the mirror. If you guys watch Insecure, like literally talk to yourself in the mirror. I believe in affirmations. I write things down. I journal a lot. I really just practice having those difficult conversations, and I don't have like the perfect formula. I've had difficult conversations recently, and I've been terrified out of my mind, but you kind of just have to do it. It's one of those things where you do it, you get it over with, it's not as bad as it seems, and you're like, wow, I survived, I could do this again. But really, it's just having to believe in yourself more than anything, because again, like I was saying earlier, the worst thing that's going to happen is they say no.
I would also add just prepare some like bullet points and like a case study of why you deserve, a pay raise or to hit that salary mark. I did this outside of my job description, or I help with, XYZ, right? Because it puts your employer in a tougher position if you're like, look at everything I'm doing, like I deserve this, right? And also just doing your research across the industry of like, the average salary in San Diego for this job is this. And so, again, presenting as many points as you can also helps your case.
Yeah, so for social media specifically, like I think one of the first things when I first like jumped into this world, I didn't even know what to charge for. There isn't like how much should I charge for a post? Like there isn't that. So, I talked to other creators and I'd be like, hey, are you cool talking about? And I was shocked where all of them were like, yeah, can we talk about this? Because I don't know what I'm doing either. And so I would say ask questions, create a community on your digital spaces, and because they're basically your coworkers, and be able to ask questions like, how much did you charge for this? Or if I do this many, because this is all still kind of new, even though it's been around. And then something my husband taught me is their first offer, you don't have to take. And so when a brand comes to me and says, hey, we have this much money in your budget, and I'm like, do they? And so then, we'll go back and be like, hey, actually, this is what I charge. These are my fees. And I have it on a big sheet where I say one post and I have it all worked out. And I send them, I actually have 3 of them. And I have one I could tell with the brand coming in, what I can kind of gauge what they can afford. I have a less expensive one, a medium one, and a more expensive. If I see like it's Samsung, I'm all the 3rd choice. And I send it over, and that's like a talking point. So like, just because a brand says, this is my budget, doesn't mean that's really their budget. They're gonna use the lowest amount and see if you take it.
Totally.
And so it's okay to push back and create those conversations so that you can, make the money that you think you deserve. So
Totally. I want to add to that too. One mistake I made very early on is, again, well, at least as a freelancer, is my rate, like my hourly. I had no clue what I was doing. And so I made the mistake of, if I really wanted the opportunity, like, this is my hourly. But like, I really want to work with you guys, so if you want to negotiate, it's totally fine. And then my therapist was like, why would you do that? She's like, you gave them a discount, who's going to pay full price? Like, no offense, Megan, you're horrible at negotiating. So like, being firm, this is my rate, or this is what I want. And if they want to push back, they'll push back. And if they say no, then, I mean, really, you should be working with someone that values you more than that. So I think that's a great point.
Negotiating is something that I've always struggled with, and like you kind of mentioned, I always just accept the first thing that's given to me and run with it. But I'll definitely take that advice to push back a little bit and really know my worth and get it as well.
I think as women too, we feel like we have to please people and be like, yes, of course, just we'll take that, whatever we can get. But it is important to remember that we're really valuable in our workspace and to really advocate for ourselves. So thanks for sharing that. I want to ask a more general question too again, and that is, have any of you experienced failure in your career? And if so, how have you overcome your failures?
Ooh, that's tough. I feel like I feel in a daily in different ways, and I'm just learning. I think the beginning, not knowing my worth was a really big one. Not knowing what to charge, not knowing that I could charge, and just saying yes. Those were huge failures because at the time I really needed the money. I just quit my job, and I was like, okay, I'll take the floaty, and that's fine. And I was like, but I can't pay my bills with floaties.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge failure. And now I think just like, I learned like, hey, I have a worth. And then also every day, every day is full of some failures as you're figuring it out. Social media especially is just it's still such an unknown land, and it's changing so fast. You figure out Instagram and now there's a TikTok and it's like, wait, that works different. What are their guidelines? And it's just so much. So you're going to constantly fail as you just, that you just figure it out because there's so much changing. It's impossible to get it fully set, I guess.
Yeah, I think, to add on in terms of not knowing your worth, there's definitely times when you're operating out of burnout because you didn't charge high enough, or you're taking as many jobs at a low rate to pay the bills. But then, in the creative field, when you're burnt out, it's so hard to get past that. So to really just protect, your creativity, your self-care, making sure, again, boundaries, that you're in, the best position that you can put yourself in. But at the same time, not knowing where that line is of not taking too much just because you think it might advance your career, which it very much could, but also your mental health, your health comes first as well. So having that balance is really key.
Yeah, I think mine are pretty much the same. I'm fortunate to not have had any major failure, but I've had little ones along the way that pretty much all lined up with not valuing myself enough, spreading myself thin, taking things personally, things like that. But every day is a lesson.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. We have one more question for you before we go into our volunteers in the audience or on the Zoom asking questions. But Jack, do you want to?
Yeah. So, we've heard about your inspiring stories today, and we'd love to know if there was ever a specific time that you can pinpoint where you really told yourself, wow, I've made it. I'm here. I really did that. But is there anything in your life or in your career journeys that have resonated with that?
Honestly, right now. Right now. I mean, right now, and being here right now, where I'm at in life. And again, I just want that to be just an example of you have plenty of time to figure it out. I think in the last 10 months, I've really found my voice, found my confidence. I really do feel like I'm that girl. I mean, I'm doing things that are really fun. I get to be here, was asked to come speak with all of you and have all these really fun opportunities that have come my way. And that's when it really clicked, wow, this is it. This is what I wanted. And it came with being nice and being genuine and having confidence in yourself and really just really keeping that authenticity. So I think for me, yeah, it's right now.
How do I top that?
You say the same thing.
Yeah. I feel like there's always pockets of, experiences where you're wow, what's happening here? I would say there was one meeting relatively recently, in the last year. I was in a meeting, a Zoom meeting, because it was quarantine time, with an actress who's I won't say her name for confidentiality. She's won an Oscar. It's super dope. But yeah, I was in a meeting with her because we were talking about, social media and whatnot, and helping her out. And I just remember just being what? How did I get here? During the meeting, as we're talking, I'm just who am I? It was a pretty surreal moment. And yeah, I think it's, again, definitely fortunate to be where I'm at and the path that led me there. So yeah, I think that was definitely a moment where you're just like, wow, like because I think the imposter syndrome too is like it's always there in certain aspects. So I think moments like that of like really also just like cherishing those moments, because I think generally we tend to be harder on ourselves than celebrating the wins and celebrating like achievements. So that is a fond memory that I'll have of like, yeah, I remember how stoked we were when we like got that meeting, and yeah, and it kind of just gives you that affirmation of like you're on to something, you're doing something, right.
So mine's kind of like when I'm at home, because I work my apartment, and I'm sitting in sweatpants and my dog is fed and I have a roof over my head, and I'm just like, oh, this is my job, and it's calm. Like that I get to dictate the chaos in my life, because when I was working on set, though I loved it and it was so much fun, on any given moment there'd be a director yelling at me, or it's raining, I'm cold, I can't get the set in, I work 14 hours, I'm hungry, I don't have time to pee. It was just such chaos. And so sometimes to me, when I've made it, when I'm like, I'm in my home, I'm okay, and I have created like the calmness and the boundaries and how I do life every day. And of course, it's not always like that. There's days where brains drive me nuts, or I have to, but just like those little moments are my moments where I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted. So that, and then like when I worked for just like a brand, like I had like, if you saw my apartment before what it looks now, it was like really bad. And I remember thinking when I first decided I was gonna do apartment DIYs, I was like, I'm so limited on what I can do and what I can design. No brands are gonna wanna work with me. Like I'm not gonna get brands. And I remember when I got a refrigerator last year, and this brand was like, we love your kitchen. Will you take pictures of our Samsung fridge in your kitchen? And I was like, I have made it. I've been in a fridge. And I was like, because if you would have seen the kitchen before, just my little DIYs, like no one was gonna put a fridge in that. And so that was a little win. And I was like, okay, so these little DIYs, it's working. Like I'm getting somewhere. So that's it.
I love that. Such beautiful responses from all of you. And I know I can speak for myself that I hope that I'm in your chair someday. And it's just really inspiring to see how you all have built yourself up in your careers.
You will be. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So moving on into questions for the audience, whoever wants to, feel free to come up. Don't be shy.
This question's for everyone. What's your favorite social platform to create content on? And do you have any specific advice for that specific platform?
That's a good question.
That is a good question. Instagram is mine. They're nicer on Instagram. That is my answer to that. I know it sounds weird, but I put my content on all the other platforms, and I do them all because you're supposed to monetize, and that's a thing. But I will say I somehow have built a community that gets me on Instagram. So it's more of a safe space for me, and that's really what I care about the most, is being able to, I love creating, but I love creating and serving in a way where people like actually like to consume my content. I'm not just trying to like, please like me, you know what I mean? I want to give and take. So I like Instagram. I'm trying to do the TikTok thing. They're so mean on TikTok. And so I just feel like I haven't created quite the community on that platform yet. So yeah, mine is Instagram mostly because like they're really nice.
That's nice. I was gonna say TikTok. I love TikTok. I think TikTok, the creativity on there is so mind-blowing, and the features that they have. I know like all the other platforms are basically trying to replicate it, but even just like duetting, like and stitching, like creates so many opportunities to take a video that you already saw and then like see 50 million versions that are like all equally funny. So I personally really like working with our clients on their TikTok accounts. I think it's tough to really give advice on TikTok because I feel like you guys probably have a good grasp on it. And because the algorithm on there is pretty like hit or miss at times, but for the most part, it's consistency. A lot of times one video will blow up and then all the other videos will then get a view bump from that. So again, not to take things personally if something doesn't blow up, but like just be consistent with it. Obviously jump on trends, use sounds on there, create short, engaging, to the point videos. But yeah, I like TikTok.
I have a reason for, I think, each platform, but just very briefly, I think Twitter is actually my platform, and similar to Instagram, it's because I've built a really great community of people that just understand me and like would probably, I don't know, I would hope they'd fight for me if something happened. Like if I would, God forbid I go to jail, I think they'd all come together and pay my bail. I don't know. I'd like to say Twitter, but I also want to say TikTok for a similar reason, but more so because it's the one platform where I think you don't have to try as hard. And I really like that because I found that the TikToks I put all my time into just flop. And you're like, oh my God, okay. And then the ones that I didn't even want to post that was in the drafts for 2 weeks, as we all know, are probably the ones that are going to go viral. So I like that it's just it's a little bit more authentic. Like you can just, no one knows, so you just do it. Like, you don't have to wear makeup, it's fine. You just do it. So that's why I like TikTok. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you both. Thank you all three.
Yeah.
Hello. So I have a question for everyone. I'm in the very, very beginning stages of starting a business. Crazy to even say.
Yeah.
So what advice or tips do you have for me or someone like me who's starting out, wants to use social media as a platform to present my business?
Well, not even a social media tip, but I would say get a good accountant and get a good lawyer, and make sure you have a business bank account set up. And I'm gonna sound like a mom, but like I promise you do all those things. But I think again, it's just, for me, I'm all about authenticity. Don't get too caught up in the likes and the follows and things like that. Like keep doing what is authentic to you and keep creating content that you enjoy making, and the right people will come gravitate towards you.
Yeah. It's funny because that was literally my first thought, was like get an attorney and an accountant to just set up the business correctly. Because a lot of times, yeah, you'll grow and then you look back and it wasn't set up properly, and then it kind of causes headaches. So if you do have the resources to just get someone to help you start. And then I think on the content creation front, like kind of what I said similarly like before, of like asking for help, in whether that's collabing with other people to help, especially if you're going on an organic approach rather than paid and boosting. It really is important to create a network of other creators as well that you can all kind of support to help you grow.
Everything they both said. Yeah, because like I know when you first start a business, you try to wear all the hats. I'll tell you, I don't wear all the hats. My husband actually helps run like all of like our business stuff. Because at a certain point I couldn't wear all the hats, and my work was gonna suffer. And obviously you're just starting out, so you're not gonna have a lot of money to be able to do that. But when you can, you a little bit just, get help so that, yeah, you could do what you love.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hi, so I was just kind of curious on how you guys handled going viral really quickly or getting popular really quickly. Would you say that it was kind of like luck-based, or would you say it was more of like a strategic plan?
Well, I didn't get popular very quickly. I don't know if I'm popular yet, actually. Mine was very slow. So I've been doing this for like 5 years, 6 years. And I know that there are people that have a significant more amount of following, and that's great. I don't feel like mine took a long time. So that whole idea of going viral quickly, yeah, it could totally happen. But don't bank, I wouldn't bank on that. It takes time, and creating not only your work, but creating your community, So yeah, I didn't really find it quickly, but I would say even doing things, slowly, I actually prefer.
It's more sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've had my Twitter since like 2009, and that was a very slow burn. I've had my Instagram since, I don't know, also a very slow burn. And I'm like decent following, but I just hit 10K like just a few months ago. So definitely a slow burn. TikTok again is its own beast. And that, I will say, like there was a moment where I had a video go viral and I went from like 8K to 20K, and I did not know what to do. and to the point like it was very unsustainable. And now I have people asking me all these questions, and I'm kind of like, I can't make all the content. So I think having a strategy there, at least just as a foundation, isn't the worst thing. But that is the one side of TikTok, is like once you've hit that and you find your niche and people are expecting content, like they want it. And most of the time you're probably not prepared.
Yeah, I think from a brand perspective, because my personal accounts, I don't have a following on there. But for our clients, I do think there is an element of luck when things pop off. But yeah, once something does pop off, what is your strategy there, right? How do you utilize those extra eyeballs coming to your page? I think specifically with TikTok, we had a client blew up 40 million views, and we were like, oh my gosh, like, do we do a follow-up TikTok? Like, reply back to comments so that we then get views, but then we targeted it more towards what she's passionate about, or like what agenda, she wants to push in terms of like, oh, she, has a book out. Like, is there a way to kind of organically tie things in? So I think it's a little bit of both, of like having a strategy with some luck to help you in the algorithm world, but then also then having a strategy and acting quickly once you're viral. Like, okay, how do I mobilize these people, or how do I then, keep rolling out content?
Thank you.
And we have time for one more question.
Hi, so this question goes to everyone, but as a person who just like fears a lot of things, especially just like failing, I'd love to know what was one of your moments in like the beginning of your guys' career where you like failed big, and how did you like reflect from that and sort of redirect yourselves to like the person you are today? Because I've heard time and time, the key to success is failure. So I've accepted that, but it's always so scary. So I'd love to know, like, with all the experiences you guys have had so far, what was like one moment where you guys failed, and how has that really reflected into your careers today?
That's tough. I mean, because I don't have like one big failure. I just have a lot of little failures. So, you know what I mean? Like, I can't think of this one big moment, but I definitely have a lot of small failures. And I think I've touched on that before, but another one that I think for me, especially in my career when I was a set decorator, is once again, not creating boundaries for myself and allowing myself to burn out so hard. That was a failure for me because I'm a creative person. So if I burn out, I actually can't not only be myself, but I also can't do my job. So learning not to allow myself to get to that burnout of a state, and creating boundaries for myself of how much I work, and how not to take things personally, and taking time for myself. That was probably like my biggest lesson and still learning just in my career.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I have one massive failure that I can pinpoint, but I would say like during my first job outside of college, it was more administrative, and I was also burnt out because I was working at an agency. It was like really long hours, and I was just like, I know this is not what I want to do. I want to do something more creative. I don't know how to get there. Like, I feel stuck every day. You kind of wake up, you kind of dread going to work, and I think one day, so this is kind of how I transitioned into MLB. There was like, it's kind of this dream job, like posting of like, go to New York and watch all the baseball games and create content. I was like, sure, might as well apply. And then I got, audition interviews and went and got the gig, and that transitioned me into more content and creative. And so I guess the lesson there, and something that I'm still obviously every day, every year working on, is just have hope and faith that good things will come. Some things, it's obviously you don't know when, which is the hard part, but if you keep trying, like if you see an opportunity, to think positively of like, let me try. Like if I get rejected, it might happen, sure, but like what if they say yes, right? It could totally change your path. So yeah, I guess don't be discouraged of the no's, and that you can't see the path clearly right now, but just keep trying and you'll find your way.
I would just add to that more just from like a overarching aspect. I think, again, I'm fortunate that I haven't had major failures in life, but one thing that has really kept me back for so long was my fear of failure. And that was because I had a fear of rejection. And that's because I'm a perfectionist. And so I think the advice I would give is it's so much easier said than done. It's one of the many reasons I go to therapy, but I try to tell myself every day that perfection doesn't exist. I try and tell myself every day, like, even if I have a typo on a Slack or a typo in an email, a tweet, granted not from a brand account, but like any sort of typo, I have to tell myself to leave it, just leave it. It's gonna be fine, the world is gonna go on. And remembering that like all these ideas that I have in my head, for the most part, don't exist. And like failure is probably inevitable for all of us, and it's going to be okay. So like there's so many layers to that and so much nuance, but it's something I'm learning, but it's really starting to get down to the root. For me, it's like, why am I a perfectionist? I'm a perfectionist because I'm afraid of rejection. But you know what? It's okay. Like, let me make these little mistakes here and there. Let me experience it a little bit. And then sometimes like that fear is a little less imminent, and it's more like you're a little bit more prepared for if and when it comes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Very great responses. We've loved having you here, and it's been great to hear all of your stories and learn from you. I know I really enjoyed the entire session we had together. I also want to say that we will have professional headshots in the back corner, so please utilize that opportunity until 4:30 and follow and post to our We Inspire SDSU social channels. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists.